Hi everyone, it's Jessica. I'm back with another video. Um, this video is generally speaking for the weeks of October 1st to October 15th, but I would say that in general, as I've worked through this reading, which took me a long time to process, that this reading is an elaboration on the last reading that I did, a deepening of the last reading that I did. And really, I would say both of these readings are very much full of a lot of important information and energies to take us through the entire fall and into the winter solstice. So, there's a lot to get through. It could take a while to get through it. I'm not going to rush today. I'm going to do my absolute best to try and be as thorough as possible. So if it takes a while, it takes a while. Hopefully you'll hang in there with me and take it all in, because it's pretty powerful and interesting what's going on right now. I did this reading actually. I pulled the cards on Friday night, and now it's Sunday, and it's taken me a long time to really process the reading. I've written a lot of thoughts about it. I journaled a lot about how it's affected some areas of my own life. I've had certain things to work through mentally and emotionally and physically about it as well. I've had to rest. This is just a very kind of deep, slow, earthy kind of reading. And I am myself, for those of you that don't know me, I am a double earth sign. My sun is in Taurus, my moon is in Virgo, and my rising is Cancer, but my rising planet is Leo, and that's the most powerful planet in my chart. So I've got fire, earth, water. But the really earthiness is really, really key to this reading, and that's why it's taken so long to process, and that's why it can't really be slow. It can't really be fast. It has to be slow. It can't be rushed. And so I hope that you can appreciate that. For some of you that are like not earthy, it might drive you nuts, and you might have to turn it off. And sorry, that's just like whatever. But there's I actually think I connected with the deep earth elemental in doing this reading. It came to me, which I don't think I've ever connected with a deep earth elemental being before. So that's been, I think, really, really interesting. And one of the decks that I used is a new deck, which is the Fairy Oracle deck. I'll show you the beautiful book that comes with it. Here we go, The Fairies Oracle by Brian Froud. And this person actually is an amazing artist. He took 10 years to put together this deck, and he's been a part of a couple of major Jim Henson art productions for a couple of movies that Jim did. So really this I would say that this is a very, very powerful deck. Just delving into it and pulling only 2 cards from it as part of this overall reading brought in some deep support from a deep earth elemental, and I think that's kind of why this has got such a distinct feel to it, and something that I haven't really seen online in a lot of other readings yet, because not a lot of readers are working with that I've seen anyway, or at least not in the general like sort of twin flame soulmate kind of readings. Not a lot of people are really working with the fairies in a very public way, and I think that there's probably a good reason for that. I think that it's and I'll get more into that throughout the reading, but I think that it's maybe it's just been a little bit unsafe or to bring this realm into the more public viewing consumption until now. I know I actually, when I was on my trip to Glastonbury, met a bona fide fairy queen, and I had an amazing, amazing connection with her. And that was really profound. And I think that also helped to lead me and guide me to picking up this deck and bringing that quality into the readings. So I wanted to really make note of that. It's also kind of why I'm showing up to this reading so raw. Like, I haven't actually showered in days. I even went to a class and I didn't shower. No makeup, no nothing. Like, I kind of am sort of clothed, but you can't see that. But I think it's like important to keep this really kind of just raw. And that can be a little kind of scary and uncomfortable, but I think it's kind of like fitting as I kind of go through the reading, and fitting to kind of what's going on right now, and what we kind of need to work through. So I pulled, similarly to last time, I pulled 12 cards. I pulled, I pulled 3 cards from the Tarot Motherpiece deck, which again is, I think, just really, really fitting. And there's some beautiful, beautiful imagery on these cards that I think is like some of the most important cards in the reading. So I'm really, really glad that I brought this one back in. And we also have the Earth Magic deck, and I pulled 2 cards from this. I also pulled a couple of cards from the Archangel Gabriel Oracle deck. These ones are a little bit more, they're by Doreen Virtue. They're a little bit more entry level in terms of like the messages in the book. But I think, and in terms of, you know, even some of the imagery, I think it's a little harder for me to go as deep with it. But there is some really, really important imagery that actually came through. So I was a little bit reserved about whether or not I wanted to include this deck, but I'm glad that I did. I think that they provide some good messages. And I also, it doesn't have a book cover or anything, but I pulled a few cards from my set of Ascended Master and Goddess cards that are from the class that I'm a student of in Cosmic Consciousness. I think it's important to kind of just put a disclaimer that I'm just finishing up my first year in that class, but I have not passed any official certification yet. Nobody in my class is really quite ready for that process. We're all, I think anyone's going to get to that point, we're all kind of taking it through for another year to deepen our awareness and understanding. So at some point throughout that year, I might do that. But as of now, I'm still a student of that system. But I think that there's some really valuable stuff in those cards that I thought was worth sharing. So it's not really it wouldn't be really well known or public imagery at this point, I don't think, because it's not a super widespread system yet. But I think that that'll be really cool to share with you guys. And yes, I think that's it. I think I mentioned all the different decks. So there's a big, huge smorgasbord of stuff to make up the 12 cards. It's still basically 6 Oracle cards, 3 Tarot, and then 3 of the, like I said, the Ascended Master Goddess cards, which kind of are in their own category. I'll just show you one quickly and we'll get back to it later, but they're really, really good cards for this is one of the Ascended Master cards, like in terms of looking at them, if you want to channel something that's kind of a more pure character or energy of that specific master. It helps to bring that in. And each master resides over one of the 12 hours or mansions in like this system. They call it the hours, mansions of the cosmic clock. So yeah, that's just a little piece of intro information. So the questions are kind of similar to the last reading. Again, where I've paired them up again. So there's 12 cards, 6 questions, 2 cards for each question. I seem to like that right now. And it gives a lot of information. 12 cards is really, really extensive. And I think that's part of also why, if I really, really want to bring through everything in all these cards, it's taking me a long time to process. If I wanted to do readings more often, I might have to like do half as many cards. But for now, this is maybe because we are setting the tone for all of fall. I think it's good to still have all of this information being brought to the table. And then maybe as the season goes on, maybe some shorter kind of touch-up readings may be more appropriate at that point. We'll see how it goes. It's impossible to really know. So yeah. Getting into kind of a little bit of background about from last reading to this reading in terms of my experiences with it. I would say, especially this past week, the energies were really challenging. I had a lot to work through, as I imagined in the last video that I might. There was a lot of integrating of past hurts, and I had to integrate a lot of failure, or fears of failure, or feelings of failure. And that was something I had to particularly deal with in my professional life, but also I would say my personal life as well, accepting certain failures in that regard as well. In doing that, though, it's accepting kind of just things the way they are, and the set feelings of failure that kind of come about in just accepting what is, which didn't in a lot of cases work out as I had hoped it would have. It helped me to kind of open up and see some of the root causes of some of the traumas, or root causes of some of the negative beliefs that I had, or, and some traumatic experiences that I'd had that had developed these kind of negative, limited kind of belief systems that were repeating themselves in my life. So in that sense, it was like very clearing, and has really kind of brought about a certain amount of endings in terms of that major, huge phase of my life up until now, and all those lessons that I've learned. So they brought up some necessary emotional uprooting. And I think that what I've seen kind of at the end of that process is it's providing me with the opportunity to free myself of karma and kind of take flight. And so, I'm sharing my personal experience, not necessarily because you might find my personal experience so interesting, but because I think that I have not consciously, maybe on a soul level, made a choice to have a life experience that's pretty in line with the kind of collective, larger mass awakening that's kind of happening now and about to really explode. And I've kind of consciously chosen to align myself with it just a little tiny bit at the forefront in order to help guide a lot of people through it. That's sort of like a new insight that's come to me, and something about being sort of in it with everybody is somehow important for me, and I think that it helps to break down the notion of like authority within the whole process of helping people through spiritual awakening, and it being more about a dialogue and about more balanced, equal sharing, giving, receiving of knowledge, awareness, support, assistance, trigger, like becoming a mirror for somebody else, back and forth. So like I think that it's pretty healthy to have that really kind of like I'm not in really control kind of attitude about being up here and sharing my thoughts with you guys about where I think things are at in terms of healing and awakening, and where I see things kind of going. It's like I think just to add to that, I've come from lineages of very kind of controlling people, and I myself have experienced a lot of control from other people in my life, and so to just kind of like do this in a very, very kind of totally raw, uncontrolled way, very, very kind of unmanipulative way, and not really the way that I would have liked to do it, like going and taking a shower and looking all pretty for you guys, and like having a pretty cover page for my reading. I mean, I'm friggin' landscape architect, for Christ's sakes, and I'm not even putting like a pretty graphic on the front of my videos. Like, yeah, it's not the way that I would have wanted to do it, but it's just the way it's going to be. And I don't know how many people are actually going to be interested in watching these videos. But that's okay, because I'm mostly doing it for myself, and that's the most important thing, is kind of dealing with our own shit. And if anyone else can benefit from that, great. But it's at the end of the day, it's always about what's going on with us. So I'm not sitting here as a preacher in any way, and but just as a friend and somebody who's doing this as much for myself and my own process as anything else. So that was a pretty big, long spiel, but I don't know, I just kind of felt like sharing all of that as an intro to getting into the cards. So the first question that I asked is, and I just want to share also that this is all, the questions are all totally channeled, and like the selections of the deck is all totally channeled. So, it just kind of what feels right. There's, all of this is just came from a very deep place. So what are we healing? And the two cards I got for that was, God, I just dropped a card on the ground. That's terrible. At least it's not for this particular card. So I got the Fairy Godmother. I hope that's clear. It's a beautiful card. I mean, really, like, look at that. There's beautiful sparkling stars in her crown, and she's a very powerful mythical creature. And then that was paired with the World, but the World actually came in upside down. And so in this one, we have a woman who's totally free. She's totally, she's kind of like re-entered her kind of abandoned natural earthy self, her connection with the earth in a sort of very tribal dance, carrying her torch, and then her family and friends have all come together, connected, naked, in a circle around her of love. And it's a really beautiful card about how in this process of coming into ourselves and coming into our self-acceptance and coming back into our natural feminine connection with ourselves and the earth, and that whole process is leading people in the world around us, especially those close to us and in our soul families and our genetic lineages, into themselves as well, and we're bringing all of those people together in peace and harmony through our own process of self-acceptance. Now, and that's another reason why I just kind of, as you can see, there's a deep relationship to her just being totally kind of, let me see if I can get this one a little closer. It's hard. Anyway, there's a relationship to her just being so raw and me showing up really raw today. Like, I think I just looked at this card and I was like, I couldn't really show up any other way. It wouldn't have been fitting. But yeah, she showed up in the reverse with this fairy godmother card. So it's pretty interesting that we got like the world showing up in like, what are we healing? And this very, very positive fairy card about, which is, in looking at the books, talking about a lot of this fairy godmother is bringing in a lot of grace and like additional assistance with healing, and it's almost was like, it's almost too positive to be like, what are we healing? It's like, well, what are we healing? And one thing that came up is, that we're not realizing how much we've already healed, and that we've actually, at this point in time, reached a very big turning point in our healing, emotional healing, and that coming to a recognition of what we've already achieved is actually a pretty important thing right now in terms of moving forward. Interestingly enough, in looking at this torch, there's a sense that there's something about this process that makes me think it's nighttime. And again, we've got the little stars here that are also suggesting that this is a night scene. And that makes perfect sense, because what came to me was that like we are kind of in this moon phase where the sun has set on that last stage of our process. It's done. We've completed it. And what's coming with when the sun comes back out again is a world of kind of infinite possibilities. And but there is this in-between phase where we're kind of guided by the light of the moon, the torch, the stars, that's requiring a more inner reflective still period that's more connected to the rhythms of the moon and the rhythms of the earth, in order to finish the full process, which is always has to be done by the sun and the moon in tandem, in order to kind of reemerge in that next solar phase. So I think that's really sets kind of a bit of an interesting tone for this time. It doesn't mean that there's nothing going on. There's actually, I think, a lot going on. And there's other cards that will come up that, you know, kind of reinforce some of these themes. It's the idea of sort of the dance, the natural dance, the rhythm of, I guess, that inner rhythm that's connected to the moon and the tidal waves and the pulse of life, the pulse of the earth, getting back in touch with the elemental kingdom. All that happens through kind of, in a way, stepping away from the sun and stepping away from our sun. So, you know, in saying all that, it might be a good time to, if you don't already know what your moon sign is, it might be a good time to take a look at that and learn a little bit more about your moon sign. And it's also a good time to learn what the aspect is between your sun and your moon. Because depending on what the phase is, and when I say phase, I mean like when you were born, was the moon a new moon? Was it a full moon? Was it a quarter moon? Like, depending on what the aspect is between your sun and your moon signs, that has a big influence on your life as well, and how you feel more prone or comfortable to acting and bringing yourself into the world. I'm taking a course right now on that. When I put this video online, I'm going to actually put a link to that course information in the description. I'm going to put actually another link as well, which I'll explain later. But it's just there for reference to kind of give you a little bit of sense of like where I'm learning some things. And, you know, if you have any interest in looking into it further, you can do that for yourself. I find it all really fascinating, and who knows, somebody else might get some benefit from that. So let's see if there's just a couple more, if there's any more thoughts on these before I move on. I'm just going to put these down for a sec. So, I mean, there's something that's going to come up again later. It came up, you know, for me a couple of times throughout the reading, but one thing that I got when I was looking at these is we need to kind of like let go of clinging to the old ways. And so really what the fairy godmother is trying to do is like she's basically trying to help bring us the grace that we need in order to let go of the clinging to the old ways, and kind of provide us with an invitation into a relationship with the inner earth beings, and into a deeper relationship with ourselves, which is available through that. And I think if you are a very earthy person, I think that is probably even more profound than maybe it is for some others. But I think it's for everybody. But I know that for myself specifically, helping to making that connection and then helping bring that connection to others is really, really important, big part of my purpose here. Okay, I'm going to move to the next cards. And I dropped them on the floor. I'll be right back. So this card actually that I dropped is probably like my favorite card of the whole reading. I mean, there's a lot of good ones, especially the mother piece, but I think this is like my favorite card of the whole reading. So the question is, I think in general, like the question is probably one of the most standout of the whole reading in terms of how powerful it was. I mean, I could have done like a whole reading just probably on these two cards, but what I had asked for was a message from the elemental kingdom, and I got from that Epona's Wild Daughter, which is a really, really beautiful card. All the cards in this deck are like really pretty. I mean, I haven't even seen most of them yet. It's a new deck, and I'm really kind of just diving into sharing it with all of you without really having much experience with it yet. But it's so interesting how, like, she seems so graceful, and yet she's also she's inviting us into a deeper part of ourselves that's without being unsupported in that. Like, she's also got this crown of light. There's not actually even that many cards in this deck that have this crown of light, and it's a sign of elementals that are like very, very wise and very compassionate and very loving. And so the fact that I pulled two of I think there's 72 cards, and the fact that I pulled two of the only ones that have that is pretty amazing. There's a lot of support from very, very powerful earth elemental beings right now to help us through what's going to maybe be a really challenging process for some people. But they want us to know that they're here for us and they're supporting us, and that we can call on them. So just to kind of and move before we get into like the card comparison, the other card I pulled was the Ten of Swords, and this card has got really, really, really amazing imagery of a woman or a series of women goddesses who are basically jumped off the cliff at the edge and are diving into the ocean, into a big wave. And right at the end, it's so hard to see behind them, is you can see at the very, very end, after this line of goddesses, we've got I have a cat on my lap. Oh well, the cat's here. It is what it is. We've got a couple of army men, that were carrying a whole ton of swords, and those army men literally chased these goddesses off the cliff and into the water, and now they are falling off of the cliff with them into the ocean, and they've abandoned all their swords. So Ten of Swords, very kind of bit of a different depiction than in the Rider-Waite deck, where all the 10 swords are in the back, somebody's back, and a person is like, still kind of in that place of holding all that crucifixion energy, which I spoke about last week about what we're healing. We're healing that kind of the crucifixion energy and all that burden. And so now it's kind of saying, it's like, well, we've been kind of pushed to the edge. The feminine have been kind of pushed to the edge, and really judged. That crucifixion, there's a lot of mental judgment happening, especially from lower masculine energies, as we've been going through the earlier phases of integrating the divine feminine. And that judgment's really kind of pushed us to the edge. They kind of never really budged. They never really came to some place of like compromise or kind of working together, or it never really came to that. Instead, like, it's sort of, it says in the book that this is sort of like the Thelma and the Louise card, and it really is. It's like, sort of like those authority figures of this sort of older masculine energy really push the feminine to the edge, and we've had to make a choice of either like facing them with their swords or jump off into the ocean, into the sea, which is, of course, very important because the divine feminine, in like if you look at the mythology, was broken off into a million pieces and cast off into the sea. And so what they've done is they've pushed us to a point where we have to dive back into the sea where the divine feminine was broken in the first place. It's like sort of, in a way, it's like a bit of a reenactment of casting off that divine feminine to the sea. But what's really so interesting is that, so they've done that with all the judgment and these forms of old authority, and yet, but they're not still standing on the shore. Like, they've had to abandon the swords as well in this process, miraculously, and they've jumped off with us. And so it seems like, on some level you could stop for a minute and say, well, all is lost. But it's actually not like that at all. What the elementals really want us to know is that this is actually a gift, and that despite how things seem, despite the appearances, it's a blessing, because we're going back into that ocean where the divine feminine that was thrown into a million pieces into the ocean, that's where she is. And so if we want to get her back, we have got to go back to the water. If you see somebody drowning in the water, you gotta go back in to pull them out. You can't just fix it from the sidelines. So it's scary to dive into that sea, because that means having to let go of a lot of things and abandon a lot of our footing, literally, because you have to be able to swim, and you have to embrace a very kind of wide, infinite realm of possibility, but it is also full of a lot of unknown, because we don't really know a lot of what's happening in those waters and under the surface. And you could also say it's a bit of an analogy for entering the unconscious realm and entering into the shadows as well, to bring her back, to bring the divine feminine back, because she's been cast into the sea, which is also, it's also the realm of shadows. And it's also, where a lot of the underworld lies, which is where, these deep earth elemental beings have been had out. So we're going back. They're inviting us back in. And this is so important, seeing that these men have also had to abandon themselves. They've got their arms in the air, they're flailing, they've let go, they have no swords, they're not on land either. They are coming along with us for the ride. And so they really want us to know that. They want us to know that the elementals want us to know that they are coming along for the ride, and this is something that we all have to do together, despite how things may look or how they may seem. So, I have seen somewhat a little bit in my day-to-day life. There's still a little bit of a sense of the sort of keep calm and carry on kind of attitude about a lot of the chaos and things that are happening that aren't working out, and how it appears like a lot of like really like intensive masculine domination is like really kind of quote unquote like winning in the world, and that kind of just like that a lot of the things that we think are important ethically and morally that we value just seem to be losing ground. And so, and it is kind of, yes, that is happening. Like in reality, it is happening, but it's giving us the opportunity to do as the feminine, to go into ourselves and go deeper and help lead the way into this process that needs to happen. And really, we are, people that carry a predominance of feminine energy, whether you're a man or you're a woman, really do need to lead this process. There's like that old saying, like men are lost without women, and that's kind of like very stereotypical, but it's kind of true in the sense that the masculine often needs the feminine energies to lead the way. Whatever the gender is that's holding that. So, you know, I think that it's really, really important to be slow about that message and let it sink in, because it's really, really important that we get it. It's really important that you get this, because when you really, really understand this, it's going to help you have the strength to do what you need to do, which is to dive into your shadows. And that's really what, Epona's Wild Daughter is really all about. So we have to deep dive in and embrace the deeper, darker parts of ourselves that we have been resistant to. We're gonna have to step a little bit away from being really actively involved in our day-to-day lives and in a very kind of outwardly focused society. So this isn't really for everyone. I don't know how many people are actually going to resonate with this video, but that's okay, because for the people that it is for, it's really, really, I think, important. So, because it's also requiring a real kind of reset in terms of modus operandi, for at least for a little bit as we work through this stuff this fall. So one more thing that came up for me in going through this was that her name is Dorcha, by the way, just a pretty cool name, I think. And she wants us to know that it's urgent. So while the call for this isn't for everyone, it is urgent. And we have to, those who feel called to this, have to move forward by way of our feelings. And it's a very important lesson by doing that in letting go of control. And I know for myself, I have to do this. Even something came up right before making this video where my daughter left to go somewhere for a play date with her friends, and something came up where I had a certain idea about how things were going to be in terms of what costume she was going to wear to kind of be matched with her friend's costume, and so that they wouldn't be fighting over it and stuff. And then she found this other costume I had bought her, which was actually a fairy princess costume, in the closet. And then she just wouldn't let up until she got to have that one. So, and I think I didn't want her to have it because I didn't want them to fight over it, her and her friend. Whereas the other one, I had found two that were the same, different colors, and I gave one to each so that they could both dress up and but in a similar costume, so it wouldn't be competition with each other. But the thing is that was an idea in my head, right? And the thing is anytime for me, because I really have to learn this lesson, that I've had an idea of how things are supposed to be, especially it comes up with the food she eats all the time about having an idea that she needs to eat a certain way. She's never going to go along with what I want, ever. Because she really is that wild daughter, that's why I pulled this wild daughter card. It's because the whole point is we just really, really, really need to let go of all of this sort of outwardly sort of we have to let go of our son, let go of our idea of controlling things and entirely about how we think things are supposed to be, and completely go into our shadow self and let that come up. And if that means being having a bad reaction about something and being kind of grouchy or being a bit of a jerk, then that's good. Like, it kind of needs to come up and out. Maybe some people don't have to do this as much as me, but I really think that part of why I see other people being like jerks to me in the world is because I'm not really kind of embracing like my inner kind of jerk who just wants to like, who just doesn't care about things. It's like it was almost like, like I had made sort of like a prejudgment that like her and her friend are going to fight about this, and like I have to sort of have somehow control it or make it better. And it's like, no, like not really. You just have to take care of yourself in a way and like let go in like a really, in to a degree that I think most people have not really gone there yet. And maybe I've already been through so many other much bigger things that have forced me to let go. And this is so comparatively, this is like a really small thing, because I did end up just letting her take the other costume, and I was like, whatever, you're gonna have to figure it out. And I got a little pissy, and I was a bit of a jerk about it. But like, she doesn't take it personally. She lets it go. I let it go. We move on. And it's important to just let that be. It's like kids are actually very, very forgiving. They're very they're more kind of authentic than a lot of adults are. And if kind of like shit comes up, like because you're just feeling pissy because you couldn't control something, like in a way it's like she's happier that I just let go and let myself be an ass about it, because that's almost like what the whole energy that she's brought to my life and what's coming up now for a lot of people in this message from the elemental kingdom. It's like we're not getting what we want in order to bring up those not so nice darker parts of us that need to come up and come out, and I think this, so for people that carry a lot of feminine energy, and for a lot of women that have been a little bit stuck in roles about being nice. Oh my gosh, women have to be nice. We have to be perfect all the time. We have to be the perfect moms. We have to check off all the boxes. We have to have the this, the that. We have to have the house. We have to have the, like, I think you guys get the point. I think you know what I'm talking about. And this kind of wild daughter energy is coming in to be like, all of that stuff, all of that perfect mommy stuff, that perfect woman stuff, that trophy wife stuff, that looking, picture perfect magazine stuff, it's all gotta go. It's all gotta go. And people that are watching this and doing this work right now, we're kind of like the leaders in that process. So, I mean, it takes a lot of strength to do this and to step into this. And that's why you have these really, really wise beings. I want to show you this one again because I really want you to take in all their energy, because they care so much, I think, about you. They really care. And they want you to feel supported by their wisdom and by their compassion as you let your shadows come up and out and integrate. And there might be a lot of tears, but I mean, on the other side of all of this is the ability to put back together the divine feminine self and become more whole and genuinely connected to the earth, and really reconnect with that genuine earth magic. that's really, that's really one of the biggest things. And until people can really connect with the real, genuine earth magic again, we're always going to be struggling with artificial forms of entertainment that feel necessary in order to cope and to distract ourselves, because otherwise life seems really flat and empty and boring. But it's not really boring, because there's so much more. We just haven't had access to it for a really long time. So let that sink in for a minute. Enjoy the cards for a minute without my voice. All right. Told you this was going to be a long, slow reading. I won't be offended if you put me on pause and watch part of this another time. It'll be just as good later. All right. The next question is what's a message from the Ascended Masters? And what I pulled for that is, actually it's really interesting because somehow one of the goddess cards ended up, my cat's pushing cards on the floor. One of the goddess cards got mixed in with the Ascended Master cards. And so even if I happened to pull the only goddess card in pulling that. So the message is from the goddess of time. So that's, there's no coincidence to that. And maybe in the future I won't actually, for that specific question, I might put both of the decks together. But it makes sense because we're pulling in so much divine feminine energy into the physical right now. It makes sense that the overall message is from a goddess. And the card that went with that is Listen Only to Love. And you can definitely see that they are well paired, and that there's a reason why this card got accidentally mixed in with the Ascended Master cards, and the strong relationship between the beautiful golden color in the Goddess of Time card, which is a Sagittarius card, and the Listen Only to Love card, where we've got this woman who is getting embraced. She's an angelic being, and she's being embraced in a beautiful golden cloak. And the message on the card said, don't allow fear to distract you from your divine mission. So this ties into the last cards we went through, in the sense that part of why it's so important for us to embrace our shadows and dive back into the realm of the divine feminine is so that we can really let all that stuff go, like all of our karmic histories that have created that fragmentation in the first place, all the shadows and the traumas. Some of them are just things even from like other lifetimes that we really might not ever even know about in any sort of conscious way. Sometimes they come up in healings, but sometimes it's not even necessary to even know what a lot of those things are. The important thing is just letting them go, so that this golden energy can come and fill us, and in that process we're putting back the divine feminine in ourselves. And I think, it's really, really interesting to me that this woman with the golden cloak came up. I didn't know this card was in this deck. Again, I don't use this deck a lot. I'm not super familiar with it. But I something that was channeled through me recently, a couple of weeks ago, did have to do with putting on that golden cloak, wearing that golden cloak while I was sitting in the garden, as if I had kind of already arrived in that fifth dimensional place where I was whole and put back together again, and where I had become the embodiment of the truth and of what's kind of really going on in the bigger picture. And you can see that she is in a garden. There's some greenery coming through there. Let's just kind of put that a little closer. And so, you know, letting that sink in for a minute, like, wow, like I had the synchronicity of my channeling of the golden cloak in the garden, and this card coming up of listening only to love is a really, you know, especially in combination to this goddess of time and being filled with the golden light of compassion, orange and red, all those beautiful colors of compassion. You see colors like this often in cloaks of Tibetan monks. So, like, it's really all about letting go of. We really need to kind of let go of the present. And I know I already just spoke about this in terms of like the last cards about stepping into our moon and kind of letting go of the sun. But like, if we're seeing stuff outside of us in the world that's not love, we just need to abandon it right now. It's really, really important to let go and bring in this golden light and the state of mind as if we're already arrived. Because that state of understanding, as if we've already arrived where we're going in this beautiful golden cloak, is a symbol of our arrival. By doing that, it's really going to help to take us there. It's going to help us to remember the higher purpose, the divine mission, and carry us through. I actually also saw a video very, very accidentally. I accidentally clicked on this person's link through my Facebook of somebody who I met a long time ago. It was a pretty spiritual person. And he was also talking about, again, more synchronicity around this, about bringing, the lighting is kind of changing. It's really weird. Okay. I think we're still, generally speaking, kind of okay. He was talking about the importance of letting things go and bringing the golden light into ourselves and filling ourselves with the golden light of purity. So again, you know, that was, I saw that between when I pulled these cards until now, because like I said, it's taken me a long time to digest this reading. So much important messages about this, because it's been coming up multiple times. It's like really, really in my face. Like, know that you're an angelic being. You are an angel. And you really are helping to lead the way for a lot of other people to do this themselves. And, you know, it's like this card is really, really, really stressing that. Like, you're this angelic being, you're a goddess, and you're helping people through. And so any sort of like things that are coming up that don't resonate with that message, you gotta like not listen to them, let them go. Just listen to this message and listen to love. And remember that you're here to bring the earth back up to a higher state of light and love and peace and harmony that is outside of a lot of the I would say, a more draining and lower density kind of way of being that we've got going on in the world right now, as opposed to a more joyful and co-creative way of being through reaching a more balanced, harmonious state in ourselves and with the earth again. Okay, I think that kind of covers that. So we'll move to the next one. My cat is sitting on the cards. This is hilarious. Okay. So this is a message for the Divine Feminine. Really not happy with what happened with the lighting in here, but it is what it is. It's still kind of okay. So the cards I got for Message from the Divine Feminine are the Goddess of Healing, which is a Virgo card. And that came with Dance, Celebration. This card is really, really beautiful. It's really, really, really tied to also to this World card, this tribal dance that was happening at the beginning of the reading in terms of what we're healing. So I would say that seeing that twice is kind of giving us a doubly strong message about the importance of surrendering to this inner rhythm at this point in time. That's a very, very important message for our healing, and specifically for the healing of the Divine Feminine. And, you know, because this is the Goddess of Healing in Virgo, and that is the message for the Divine Feminine, it's reinforcing a lot of what I've already been saying in the reading about the fact that, you know, we are going through a very, very big healing process right now, you know, and the Epona's Wild Daughter, you know, about bringing up all these shadows. While it is kind of scary and weird and dark, especially for a lot of women who haven't been allowed to be dark, it is allowing us to really heal. And there's, you know, Virgo is actually a feminine sign. Most signs are more masculine oriented, but Virgo is a feminine sign. I'm hoping that's going to make things better. And so it's appropriate that it's all tied together. Message from the Divine Feminine is from a feminine sign, and regarding our healing. And I think that Virgo is interesting because like my moon's in Virgo, and it struggles. There's a struggle, I think, with the perfectionism and with self-criticism, and in terms of like my inner dialogue and my inner self that comes along with that Virgo sign. And it's like that a very strong kind of like inner critic, inner analysis, always kind of like cross analysis of things that other people are saying, and that kind of like can keep you stuck. Like, I know it really kept me really stuck for a long time. Like I was really like, it's in a way it was really smart, like, you know, being able to do such a cross analysis and have such a dialectical kind of mental process. But really right now what's really required is it's not having that mental process that's has that strong analytical bent, that strong critical bent. It's really about that green, bringing in that green light more than anything else, which is the color that we associate with the heart chakra, and healing our hearts and healing that mind-heart connection, so that that bringing in that green light for our healing is it's the elixir for the mind and for that critical mental process, which is very, very Virgo. And just to kind of bring this a little further, like, even if don't have anything Virgo in your chart, everyone on some level, generally speaking, exhibits like little bits and qualities of the different signs, or at least a lot of them throughout their charts, depending on like what planets hit them. And now there's, like, we know of all these like new bodies that we found, new dwarf planets, like, which some people call them 5D planets because they help awaken us. So depending on where all these new dwarf planets and asteroids and comets are showing up on our charts, also there's so many different energies that actually do have some sort of impact on us. It's just that they don't necessarily all have the same weight or power as things like our sun sign and our moon sign and our ascendant. So like I said, if you do have Virgo, this might be more meaningful, even more so meaningful for you. But for everyone, like almost everyone is going to have some aspect somewhere in their chart of that inner critic, that maybe being a little bit hard on themselves, which is very kind of Virgo, and it needs to be let go. Bye. See you later. Yay. You excited? I know I am. And then through that, we're kind of like re-entering the dance of life. So, it is the message for the divine feminine, but again, like, the divine feminine and the divine masculine exist in all of us. Sometimes, like, in doing this reading, I have found that both the message for the feminine and the masculine are both equally applicable for me. This is a message for the divine feminine in us all. So, what else do I want to say? I think, it's already so long, this reading, and I still have some cards to get through, but, reconnecting with the land, this is like a tribal culture with a hut in these plains. It does have a very strong African feel to it. And obviously, like, this woman is you can see she's clearly of an African lineage. This is an African tribal cultural dance. And that's, they say, like, we all kind of originally come genetically, modern humans are all originally from from like northern Africa, like Moroccan kind of area. I don't know exactly, but I've read something about this before. And there's a strong sense of being able to tap back more into a more primal part of ourselves, more, in some ways, like a more authentic part of ourselves, through this healing of all this fragmentation of who we are, through the traumas that have happened to our emotional body and our mental bodies, in, I guess, probably several and many lifetimes now. So it's hard to know exactly what that's all going to look like, like on the other side. Like, I don't really think personally that things are just going back to like living on the land exactly. Like, that's never really resonated with me. but there's like a re-entering into that flow of life, into some readoption of wisdom that a lot of tribal cultures had in terms of entering the rhythm of the dance and the moon, like I've spoken about multiple times, I think, already in this reading. That's really like it's kind of got to happen, and it's going to happen, and that is what's really gonna, to be quite blunt, people that aren't gonna be able to do this and find their way into this aren't going to be able to move into the new of where the earth is going. And I'll just leave it at that, and you can make what you want out of that statement. But it's not meant to be like negative or harsh, because everything is divinely perfect the way it is. It is. But having said that, we are moving towards a massive amount of change in terms of how we are in relationship with the earth. That's what's coming. Okay. The next question is, what is the message for the divine masculine? Oh, I said I wanted to read this one from the book. Yeah, there's a couple of things I want to actually, for this one, especially if there's any people with a lot of divine masculine watching this, I really wanted to read the details. I think that might be really helpful and a little bit educational. So the two cards I got are Serapis Bey, which is Cancer, and the other card is Island, Solitude. So both of these cards carry that beautiful blue ray energy. Amazing. I got in the last reading a pair of 2 blue ray cards as well, so I'm just like super psyched that happened again in this reading, and that it happened as a message for the divine masculine in us. I guess before I kind of read some of the specifics, I mean, it's really, really powerful that these came out together. It's as powerful as it was in the last reading. There is I think, one of the most important things to really make mention of is that because of how things are right now, kind of astrologically, and because of where we're at in terms of a lot of the upgrades that we've received through the way the planets have been making aspects with each other, and because of all of that, we're now at a point where the divine masculine in us is ready to begin entering this process of reunification as well, and developing the mind-heart connection. And in order for that to really happen, we have to be kind of invited into the ascension process by way of kind of connecting with that blue ray energy, which forces us, when we first begin to awaken and it starts to hit us, it really forces us inwards into that place of solitude, to start to really look at ourselves and figure out what's going on, what this awakening and shift is all about, and what's this awakening in our hearts. What is all this? It's really, for some people it's more profound than others. For some people it happens more intensively and faster than others. I think maybe for the masculine part of ourselves it's happening maybe a little bit more softly. Like we got this little blue ray that's softly shining on. We really need to fix the lighting so you guys can see this a little better. How do we do this? Here. Excellent. Much better. Okay. So you can see we've got this amazing island in a sea of still water, still reflection water, and it's this big rock where there was these dark clouds all over the rock, where there was no movement, no life, nothing happening, nada. But now this light has started to softly shine through those dark clouds, and some greenery is starting to grow on the rock, and we've got this tree that's growing, a single tree, and it's in bloom. So something's happening. Things are moving. What was once a part of ourselves, and it's not just men, but the masculine in general, part of ourselves that was really stuck and not feeling for a long time, is accessing this energy as well. So like I do have a lot of feminine energy, but we're all, generally speaking, a combination of both. And I've seen, so something came up in the past week that made me see a part of that more masculine part of myself and the connections that it had made in the past that I hadn't been able to feel about. We're able to feel. I was able to release sadness and emotion about a situation from many, many years ago that I had never had access to before, that I had kind of shut off and just like sort of judged. So you see again the connection of like releasing the judgment, diving into the feelings and surrendering into ourselves in the process. So that was like amazing and really, really important big shift in me. And part of what facilitated all of that, and it's going to be amazing when I read this because you're going to be like, wow, was that I did a root chakra clearing. And that was all happening in tandem. It was a root chakra calibration clearing. And after I, had this brief communication with this person from my past who I was very hurt about how that situation kind of worked out. But I mean, basically, I didn't realize that I had stuff trapped in my root chakra about it, trauma about it. And after I spoke with them and I cried, and I even had the courage to kind of tell them, like, wow, I actually really released the situation. It's like, wow. I had a massive release in my tailbone, and it felt like a bit of a contraction. So it was very physical, it was very real, and it happened twice. I had two big kind of painful releases from my tailbone, and that was after speaking to them and after doing the root chakra calibration. So, and now since then, I've been feeling different. And I'm sure that if you watched my first reading and you're watching this now, you're probably like, wow, different. So it's big. It's really big. I also think that once I go and I have a shower, I'm going to also feel different again. But I think it was really important for this reading to just stay with all of this and really share it completely, authentically, with, pulling as much of the insights and transformations that I've gotten this weekend into the reading and bringing this all out in the video as raw as possible before, moving on and maybe going a little bit more back into like balance, I guess is the right way to maybe say that. So, reading to you about Serapis Bey. Serapis Bey is the hierarch of the Ascension Temple at Luxor and is the architect of the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt, which is located at the center of the landmass of the planet. He's known as the Great Disciplinarian. He's the guardian of the ascension process for the planet. He initiates you in the flame of purity. Oh my gosh, I don't know if all of you remember when you first started to awaken, there was a lot of flames of purity by that person that came into our lives that we may or may not be our twin flames, who certainly brought us a whole lot of flames to purify ourselves. That's for sure. We can all agree on that. And now that light is being shone on the divine masculine as well. So that's really they're being, initiated through Serapis Bey into the ascension process as well. It's also the white light of the divine mother, who is Cancer. Cancer is the divine mother. His message is to balance self-reliance and devotion and to be like the mother. Your root chakra is where you carry primal emotions. It is cleared and purified. Or when it is cleared and purified, it generates harmony. Upon the 6 o'clock line at the nadir of the chart, so it's right at the bottom of a circular chart, the Omega return begins. Here you shift from an emphasis on the mental body to the emotional body. Just before I move on, because it's so important. See all those, this 10 of Swords cards, all those swords, which are a symbol of air and of the mental body, are being abandoned by the masculine, and they're entering the water, which is a symbol of emotions and the emotional body. So, and you can see they're right halfway between. And then, so it's actually perfect, because here it says this is exactly what's happening for the divine masculine right now. They're moving from a shift from the mental to the emotional body. And the divine feminine is more like shifting from, she's also at a shift point, but she's moving from the emotional body into the physical body. So it's like we're kind of squaring each other, or if you're in like a 5D language, you're in stepping stone with each other in our processes with these different parts of energies of ourselves right now. It says here, the energies of the divine feminine enter here, assisting the inner balancing of the head and heart. Serapis Bey teaches that will alone is insufficient. Rather, a heartfelt devotion and obedience to the path of ascension is required. Integration does not occur in a linear, predictable fashion, but evolves from an inner expansion that moves in a circular spiral ever upwards. Serapis Bey will assist you to master your emotions, to find the balance between head and heart. Balance supports flow and harmony, which is necessary to carry you back to the top of the clock. So, I mean, I think that's really, 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 really positive. I think this is, it'll be really interesting to see what starts to happen now. I mean, I've heard it said that a lot of people are going to start awakening now, which would make sense because, like, in light of seeing this, because a lot of people do have quite a bit of a balance of masculine and feminine energies. And so for some people, it might have taken this point, this crossing of the nadir, for that masculine part of ourselves, in order to have enough of like a critical mass within them of that blue ray kind of energy in order to awaken. So it's going to be available to a lot more people now. And yeah, it's, I don't know, it's impossible to know what that's going to look like. But I think it's really, really good to be on here and sharing it and sharing, my thoughts about things and getting away from a lot of the BS that's still floating around about like jumping to reunion with another person and coming back together with some person that is not either wanting you at all or not ready to be with you at all or whatever. Like, it's like, gotta move on. We gotta like really have the courage to open up fully to this process and see it from a more cosmic and very kind of deep earth perspective about what's really happening. Not everyone's going to have the ability or the courage to do that. But if you are here doing it with me, like, I think we really are the ones that are leading the way. I really, truly, I don't say that from a place of ego. I really don't. But I've had enough experiences in my life and experiences lately and enough reflection lately to really, and I understand my chart well enough now to really know that I really am a leader in awakening people gently through a kind of divine feminine kind of way to the truth. And so I do hope that if you resonate, that you share this, that you try and spread it. Some people are just gonna like not even know what to make of it, but that's okay. And some people just aren't gonna have the patience for it and aren't gonna want to hear it. It's not my job to tell people what they want to hear. It's my job to just go through the process and share it. I think I wanted to, let's just quickly check the book. This is like the longest reading ever. Yeah, I wanted to read a little bit of Island from the book too. Please don't hate me. Forgive me. They won't all be this long. Okay. Island. Solitude. The solitary tree on this island, surrounded by the glassy sea, can evoke different feelings depending on one's perceptions and beliefs. The tree, which is in full blossom, stands out amid the relative starkness and is illuminated by a beam of light emerging. I kind of went over some of this stuff, but let's go over it again. Really let it sink in. From the otherwise dark sky, it's an elegant reminder how even what might appear to be relatively barren circumstances, there is still beauty and growth. And that really, really is so tied to like how the feminine has been feeling so pushed off the edge and judged by the masculine and conquered. These are really important to see these together. It's just not really that way. It seems like we're totally defeated in a lot of places and situations in life right now, but it's not really that way. It's really important to understand that. Although an island like this can be a metaphor for isolation and desolation, the thriving tree proves that even in the harshest of environments, there is life. We can see the tree's spider-like roots spreading out along the rocks, seeking nourishment from the moist soil. The sense of peace and solitude depicted in this image provides nourishment for the soil. You need to take some time for solitude, preferably in silence, spending the morning, afternoon, or even the entire day by yourself, completely unplanned and unstructured. The bombardment of your senses by the noise and intensity of society leaves you on alert far more than is necessary. The vibration of millions of people's worry and fear throughout the world can impinge upon you and greatly affect you if you do not honor your need to pull back from time to time. When you've passed through any constructed barriers to enjoying the quiet peace of solitude, it will serve you best if you simply observe the thoughts and emotions that pass through you, especially those that cause shortness of breath or a quickening heartbeat. Remember that isolation is experienced not by choice, but out of fear. When you decide to spend time with yourself in solitude, however, you are choosing once again to find and connect with who you really are. So, I know I've been feeling myself not wanting to really hang out with other people when I'm being really honest with myself right now. So I think that probably a lot of people are kind of maybe feeling that way or will be feeling that way soon, especially people with more divine masculine kind of energy. And that's just part of the process, especially even for people that normally have like very, very big social lives or like really, really outwardly oriented people. It just need to take a little step back right now. It's really going to be really, really beneficial. And I think that some people have maybe already even started to go through this and could really probably attest to all the blessings and the gifts that are coming out of that isolation, in terms of helping the divine masculine aspects of ourselves to come and join the ride join the ride of this process. And it's going to become more of a dance now, more of a conscious dance, because this aspect of ourself is really entering the process with us. So that's really, and it's going to I think make it a little easier ultimately, because like both parts of ourselves are on board. So on the whole, like this is a really, really positive reading, even though I think it's going to take a lot of like courage to really just face ourselves as part of working through it all. But it is really, really positive about what's kind of what we have the potential to come into now that's opening up for us. Okay, there is 2 more cards, and then I will let you go if you have not turned me off already. So the last question has to do with like how I asked insights into how we can step into our higher purpose and our higher consciousness at this time. And for some people, like they might be more ready to like really step into the higher calling now, but some people might be just looking to figure out how they can step more into this kind of consciousness right now. So it's kind of covering both, depending on wherever you're at. The cards I pulled are, one of them I'm having trouble. Oh, the cat need to go on the floor. I'll be right back. Okay. So cards I pulled are Stay True to Yourself. And this says specifically, don't compromise or water down your ideas. Listen to, trust, and follow your inner voice. Actually, I haven't probably given this card as much attention as the others, but you can see basically there's like a person who's really, really just focused on their own gig. And their cloak actually is a little bit golden. And they're sort of, and they've got this red other cloak, which is sort of like that red golden energy here. Look. How beautiful is that? This red cloak around that golden cloak, guys. Oh my gosh, new insights coming through in the reading. I love it. This is amazing. These relationships and synchronicities blow my mind. Kind of going into this world of cloaking ourselves in this golden energy and protecting ourselves. I mean, red is like this, like the red is that healed root chakra. We're cloaking ourselves in a strong sense of security and safety and self-love and purity, and not really worrying about what's going on in the outer world, guys, or what other people think or what they have to say. This is our time to do this. It's our time to really step into our self-love and our purposes and shine. The card I pulled with that is the World card, upright. And this is, I don't know if they even make these in a bigger deck. I hope that they do. If they do, I'm going to buy them, because it's really hard to see all the important detail on my camera with the mini deck. But we've got here a woman who is giving birth. Okay, so she's in the center here. She's giving birth. She's got one woman on either side of her, embracing her, holding her throughout this process of giving birth. The baby's head sticking out. And we've got this whole circle of people who are, in this case, they're all women, which is symbolic of being embraced in this divine feminine energy. And again, if we go back to the World card, we've got another circle here of a circle of love, a circle of unity, which we get. Unity is part of this whole process of inner peace and inner wholeness, and the reunification of the divine feminine. It's all here. It's like really in our faces. It's screaming at us. And of course she's inside this circle of all this love, you know, inside this realm of cocoon of protection, cocoon of safety. You know, a lot of us have things in our root chakras that need to be cleared and healed. She's in all this safe, supportive energy, and this person has created all this safe, supportive, nurturing energy in order to, and all of this, you know, why? You know, what's really going on? And we're birthing our new selves, and we're birthing our new creations, and we're holding and birthing the divine feminine into the physical plane. And so right now, it's really, really important that we stay true to ourselves and that we take really good care of ourselves, as if we were like giving labor. Like if a woman in labor can't focus on anything else besides the task at hand, it's not even an option. It becomes the sole purpose, the sole everything, the sole focus, is to just go into that place of inner strength and fortitude to bring something new into the world. I know for myself, this is probably, you know, where I'm probably myself have the most resistance, because I think maybe it's asking me to do something that I don't even know if I'm fully ready to do. And maybe, you know, this being at the very, very end of this whole series of cards, maybe it's just, you know, I don't know. The cards are really saying it's time to do it, but we're still kind of holding on. And so, yeah. I don't know, think about it. Think about what it means for you. Maybe I just need to like share it with everybody and digest it a little bit more. I mean, I will say that by doing this reading and sharing all of this, I am really being true to myself. I'm sharing it with people that are a similar mind in a, generally speaking, a safe place, even though it's online, even though it's on the internet. I don't think people would really find this or come across this reading unless they, unless this energy was safe with them. It'll be interesting just to see how maybe there might be a little bit more momentum with really coming into this birthing process in the next couple of weeks. So everything happens in divine timing ultimately. I don't know if there's anything else I want to say about that. Yeah, it's important to strengthen our assertiveness at this time. It's part of this whole thing. You know, we're coming up with some really kind of cool new ideas and creations in this new energy that we're embodying. And there's a lot of people that don't necessarily fully get that yet. So sometimes we are just going to have to like stand up a little bit for what we believe in and what we think is right. Be more assertive about that in ways that in the past maybe we would have been more easygoing. So that's part of it too. Part of the lessons that I know I have to learn in this. And that's going to help by becoming more confident in that and in ourselves and in our authority, and by in this place of like deep self-care. It's going to help those continued creations to kind of continue to like birth into being with more ease and flow, you know. And part of that is surrendering into ourselves and into our own process and into our own purity and our self-love. It's gonna like allow those things to flow better, you know. Like surrender is really key. Surrender and support. And if there's things that are, it came to me in the reading like before, like if there's things in your life and people in your life that are not supporting you on this journey, you might have to cut them out right now. If people are pulling you in other directions that are not supportive of you coming into yourself, they're really pulling you away from a very, very important process right now. And you might have to be very careful about how much you interact with them, and how much your energy you put in that direction. You know, and it can be really, really scary to let go of old relationships and old connections, or at least put a pause on them. I know I've had a lot of tests I've had to deal with along the way with that, with some people really close to me. So I'm already kind of really like used to it. But maybe not everyone watching this is as used to that as I am yet. But like generally speaking, the people that are really meant to be in your life aren't really fully going to go away. And sometimes we just do need little breaks to really kind of come into ourselves, just like how like the masculine energy really needs a sort of island of solitude right now to kind of do their thing and come into themselves, or that energy to come into itself. And so, and yeah, don't watch too many readings. I said that in the last reading as well. Like, unless something's really resonating with you, don't watch it. Don't feel like you have to watch it. Don't do anything that's just not really vibing with your self-care right now and coming into your golden light, your golden purity. Is there anything else? I wanted to say just a few summary things. I think. Um, like one thing that that I came into my awareness, this more has to do with me and my role, but it's also a little bit tied to what's happening this fall, is like when we at the fall equinox, which was on September 22nd, the planet Sedna, which is the most outermost planet orbiting our solar system, is this huge long cycle. It comes in and out of our solar system. I think it's like 16,000 years or something crazy. Very, 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 very big orbit. And Sedna is representational in a cosmic consciousness system of astrology, of the remembering of the divine feminine. And so I know personally Sedna is really important to me because I have in my chart a Sun Sedna conjunction, and it's also I also have a bit of a conjunction with Chiron in that as well. So it's a Sun Sedna Chiron. So, and right now Sedna is at the top of the chart, or she was right at the top of the chart on the equinox. So she's very she's making a very strong presence in terms of making herself known again into the physical throughout this season. And so, especially since the Venus kind of energy of the emotional body is now moving into the physical realm as well. So they're kind of working together playfully. And so what that really means is like, it's, I think that it made more sense to me about like why I'm making these videos now. And it's really important. Oh my God, my lighting is just atrocious. I'm gonna have to like work on some of the finer details, man, moving forward with these videos. But like it made me really realize that like, why did I start doing these videos now? Like, what changed? And like, it's because like where the world as a whole is at with the energies about the remembering of the divine feminine starting to come into the physical this fall. And because I have such a strong representation of that energy through the fact that I've got the Sun, Sedna, Chiron conjunction, which, from a 3D perspective is like, okay, like I'm like the wounded healer, but it's like an important part of my psyche. But as we move into like the ascension process, we have more 5D understanding of what that actually means. It's actually like, that I'm becoming the master healer through the remembering of the divine feminine and the reholing of the divine feminine. And I also have Eris right at the top of my chart in like a grand cross. So, I mean, Eris is not a planet a lot of people actually normally in regular astrology put a lot of attention to, but it's like pretty much the same size as Pluto. And when the day that Pluto got demoted from a regular planet to a dwarf planet, Eris was added as a dwarf planet. So, I mean, it doesn't really make any sense why people would give any more weight to Pluto than to Eris in doing any sort of astrological reading in the last, now that we know what we know about Eris and we've been awakening to in the past 10 years. So this is why it's really important. I'm just sharing a little bit of info at the end here about this because, people in this awakening process do tie in the astrology a little bit. And I think it's important to understand that astrology is always evolving, and any sort of, any really astrological understanding that's really on the pulse is going to fully take into account the fullness of what we see out there, like what we've discovered in the cosmos, because it's all a reflection of ourselves. So if we're not really talking about if we're not including the new planets we're discovering and what we feel they mean, how they're kind of what they represent in our consciousness that's growing and evolving, then it's not really going to give us and not going to be a system that's going to really allow us to grow and evolve with it. So so having that, it's really was important for me, I think, to learn that newer kind of perspective on astrology and this newer system that's taking into account these other bodies, because of the fact that I have Eris right at the top of my chart in a grand cross with my nodes and with Saturn. So, and in a power cross, no less, like literally right on those major axes. So that's big, like that's huge. And so I don't know if anyone here has gone and done astrology readings, or if they've taken into account planets like Eris or other planets or Plutonian kind of objects in the Kuiper Belt. But it's worth actually taking a look at all of those things in terms of what they might mean potentially for you to coming into your own self-awareness and your own awakening. So yeah. So I'm going to put at the bottom of this, I'm going to post the web link for the astrology site that I follow by Stephanie Azaria. I'm going to post a link to Christine Clemmer's site as well, who's offering the 5D chakra calibrations, which is a series that just started. We've just done the root chakra so far, and everything is available by recording. And I'm also going to put a link to Elias Lonsdale's site as well, and the moon course that he's taking. None of these people have asked me to do this at all. It's not, this is not marketing. This is not advertising. I just think that it's important to me to provide the access to these things if anybody's interested in it. So that's it. I'm finally done. Wow, really long video. I'm really sorry about the lighting and how this all kind of, I don't know. It's the sun is setting and everything got really weird lighting wise since the beginning of the reading. It's changed a lot in here, so I really do apologize for that. I hope that it wasn't too much of a burden on the overall video, but maybe next time I'm gonna have to shut the blinds and do a more artificial light kind of scenario that's not going to keep changing on me. But I hope it didn't affect too much at least the value of the messages that came through despite that. And yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions anytime about any of the cards that came up or anything that I'm talking about that maybe didn't make sense. I'm always available. So I'll also put my email, oh my god, I just hit my laptop. I'll also put my email address, which is thebelovedpath@gmail.com. I'll put that at the bottom as well if anyone wants to chat with me about anything. And that's it. It was really great to share this. Really, it's been a huge part of my weekend. It was just really, really important to process all of this and get it out. And I don't really know exactly when my next video will be or what's next, because I realized that I need to have a really not controlled, feminine, very feminine approach to making all of this stuff. That is very kind of unleashed. So we'll see, but I do really hope that that I am back soon. I think it's helpful for people to have a video at least every month at the absolute latest. I guarantee that I will be back within a month, and I hope that I'm back within a couple of weeks with something else to share. So that's it. I send my greatest love to all of you, and I thank you so much for watching this extremely long video and for for joining me on this journey.